go to Arcadia? You're going to love this talk. Right, okay, so yeah, I'm Graeme. I am lead designer at NoCode. And what I want to talk to you today about is, there's a microphone, I should probably talk into that, is about how, 6 years ago, I went from full-time teaching in the classroom, where I'd been a teacher for 12 years, teaching science and physics and electronics, and moved into game development. And what I want to talk about is basically some of the things that I took from teaching into my career. I came from, as a designer, I come from like a, I didn't go through the regular process. I didn't go to university that taught game design. I played games. My university degree is in like maths and physics, so I had like some understanding of like the kind of technical side of things, I guess. But I hadn't been through that process. I didn't have the language. I didn't have the that kind of experience that you would get through that kind of thing. So obviously coming in with a little bit of insecurity into the job, but so I needed to kind of hold on to a few things that I felt kind of ran in parallel with the kind of world of making games with what I learned in teaching. So I think there's a few things I could drop on, and maybe some of these things will spark some interest or thoughts or something like that. It wasn't like a total clean jump, as you can probably imagine. It wasn't like one day I was a teacher and the next day I was designing games. My brother, John McKellan, he had started up NoCode after a number of years in the industry. And I think it had been running for a couple of years. Joining NoCode was an opportunity that came about after spending a bunch of time, probably about 4 years prior to moving into NoCode from about 2013, working on little projects with John and with Omar, who's the other co-founder, primarily to begin with at game jams. And then later on, Stories Untold, which started in the game jam as The House Abandoned, which was like the first episode, and then grew into a bigger game. That came about because of Observation. Observation was waiting to be greenlit, and the funding for that was a little bit complicated. It was coming from different sources, so there was a bunch of time to wait for that. And in the meantime, we'd built this little House Abandoned game that had kind of got a little bit of press and had a little bit kind of noticed online and stuff like that, so we thought, okay, let's make that in the meantime. Got a little tiny bit of funding to help do that, and that is really where I kind of learned the engine, like learned Unity, learned a bit of visual scripting, and started to kind of understand the whole process of what it goes into making a game. In game jams, obviously you get kind of like just little kind of tasters of that here and there, but I had a lot of success in those years. Kind of really kind of bug bit me, and when it came to kind of Observation being greenlit, I got the opportunity to jump in, and it was a big jump because teaching's one of these very, very safe professions, and I was good at it and I really enjoyed it, but I couldn't turn down the chance to kind of work with my brother on something and move into this industry. Sounded exciting. Okay, so three things. Okay, so number one, constructivism. So constructivism is a theory at the heart of teaching. You kind of learn it day one of like teaching school. It's a very wide, broad set of kind of ideas and theories, but to really kind of narrow it down, what it basically means is that two things. I've got these in the wrong order. Well, there's not really an order, but I'm going to talk about the second one first. So human learning is active, and what that kind of means is that for you to effectively learn something new, you have to be active in that process. So you have to take part. You can't just like absorb the information and expect to like truly understand it. So you have to kind of work with the idea. You might ask questions about it, or you might experiment with it, prod and poke and all that kind of stuff, to try and fit that thing into your understanding. And that's where the construct to come part is part of it. Learning is constructed, and what that means is that new ideas are built upon ideas that you already have in your head, and you build them on top of each other, and they give meaning to each other. And you always have heard that term when like when teachers or when you talk about something clicking, when you begin to understand something, and that's kind of like all these building blocks that you've got in your head of all this kind of knowledge begin to kind of like form into a nice pattern and click into place, because all of a sudden you've found that key that binds everything together. And I think I saw like a big sort of parallel between what I was doing in designing lessons. So we would do a lesson plan, which is not like massively dissimilar from a game design document, where you would, the very first question in my lesson plan, if I was going to like bring something new to my students, is what do they already know? What do they already know? What am I trying to teach them, and how are we going to get there? And I just saw massive parallels there between what I was doing in the classroom in preparing lessons and designing experiences for my pupils, basically, and designing experiences in games, where it starts with what does the player already know? What do I want the player to understand or experience? How am I going to allow them to do that? And there's a lot of kind of similar thought processes there, and you can kind of explore that sort of stuff further. But that statement there, which is done the very bad teacher thing of not actually citing my reference. I can't remember where it came from, but it is real, it's true, somebody said it and it sounds right, where like in games we build little universes where there's a set of rules, and we ask players to prod and poke and try things out, and they build their experience from there. So games are a learning process. Jet skis have nothing to do with teaching, but the reason I'm going to bring it up is just because I remember when I was studying physics and maths, and deep inside the numbers and letters, and just drowning in the functionality of the subject. And it is a beautiful subject once you get out of that bit of it, but it's I remember drowning in that and just really yearning for some creativity or some form, I guess, to what I was learning, and I needed outlets like music and writing and things like that. And I remember thinking like the perfect job for me when I grow up would be one where there is this perfect, nice balance between tech and functionality and rules and understanding, and then form and art and creativity and experience, and bringing those things together. And when Owen Wilson said that in Loki, I was like, I'm not going to say the word. So experience and meaning and mechanics and framework kind of coming together in nice harmony is amazing to see. When, like, I love that aspect of design where a set of rules or a feature and some functionality that you're building nicely enhances the narrative or the themes of your game, and you just get this nice little kind of codependence and symbiotic nature of them both, and it's great when those two things click together. So that's kind of why I love this, and it was something that I remember thinking a long time ago. And finally, in my last 1.5 minutes, the reflective practitioner. So this is something that is a habit that was drilled into teachers of my generation, which was kind of a new thing at the time, I guess, which is basically making teachers have the habit of reflecting on your own practice on a daily basis, and becoming really natural and familiar with that and at ease with that process. And I think probably because like teaching's such a performant thing, where you can design your lesson, you can be prepared as you like, and preparation is definitely key in the whole teaching thing. But when it comes to actually delivering a lesson, you've got to perform on the day, you've got to do it right, you've got to be there in the moment and respond and be aware of what's happening around about you, and that's the key thing. And so afterwards, we were always encouraged to look at our performance and be able to kind of almost like take yourself out of it and be objective about it. Don't like give yourself a hard time that you didn't do that right, or this happened, or some kid gets sent to the nurse because you did something wrong, or that, you don't get too you don't get too upset about that kind of thing, and you just look at these things objectively. And these three questions: what do I do well? What do I struggle with? And how do I develop? And this was something that really helped me in the kind of beginnings of my career, and now still absolutely in design, this habit to kind of ask these questions, to try and move towards a place where I feel like I'm growing in my subject. And I've run out of time, but there's one last thing. And it's strange how things that you worry about, like through your career, kind of change. When I was a teacher, right at the beginning, I was really worried about teaching them the truth of what, like getting the science right, like they cared. So I was really worried about that kind of stuff. And then I realised later that actually, as a teacher, you're supposed to kind of lie to them a little bit to just try and help them understand things, just to get them over the line, all that kind of thing. And then that changed into, it kind of developed into kind of relationships with the children and understanding the children better and what they need and building that kind of thing up. And design, I'm feeling the same thing as well, about going from the mechanics and getting my designs right and worrying about that. And now I'm kind of moving, hopefully, more into these things here, where it's about working with others and about learning how to work with others better, to bring people together better. As a designer, that's what it's all about. I went way over, sorry. And that is me. Thank you very much.